What is going on, YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the sixth album by rap group 36 Mafia. Basically, this project is called The Unbreakables, and it came out in the summer of 2003. So 36 Mafia took a little bit of a break after their two. So basically, this project follows like the Choices, the album from 2001, which is a pitch that had like a movie released along with it as far as the pitch kind of particularly happened. It was kind of a quieter project, but 36 had not quite broken out like the mainstream fold. This is an album that was kind of like the breaker for that particular point. It was just kind of like a primer project that at least got at least got like one or two good buzz singles around this particular time. I want to say You Scared was a single that was released around this time. The original one was not on this particular album, which is unfortunate, but You Scared 2 is basically the same production. So it's kind of like two pseudo singles, but at least one in Riding Spinners. But basically, it had some good buzz singles out this particular product. A lot of good vanilla rap music and horrorcore type tones that was starting to break into like commercial waves. It was really just four of them on this particular project. Lord Infamous, DJ Paul, Juicy J, and Crunchy Black. Pretty good pitch, good combination here to kind of get that in particular. But their true commercial breakout in the most part was Most Known Unknown from 2005, and then they really crested in 2008 with Last to Walk. But this is kind of like a version-y type one. It is a classic here. I would definitely have to say this is a pretty sheer classic. Definitely another blitzing type 36 Mafia album. I'm going to give a real classic and rave score to. It's just a very vintage type one, despite the despite it not having like the sheer kind of commercial success, this album did at least go gold, and it's kind of underrated, I would have to say, just within the pitch of the album sales of this particular project, despite the quality of it. I would have to say it's just kind of a concept that this is definitely one of the better, if not best, rap albums of 2003. When you think of some of the burgeoning type ones, like Southern rap was still kind of somewhat like its kind of relatively green stages in 2003. Ludacris was cresting around this time. Ti was starting to define things with trap music from the summer of 2003. There were some folks like that. I'm trying to think of some other folks apart from Ti and Ludacris, Lil Jon was pretty popular. Lil Jon and the Ying Yang Twins were starting to define crunk music pitches like that. So it was just some early type stages. This is definitely a pretty relatively solidified type project. I do think I like this project more than When the Smoke Clears, but it was like 8, 9 years ago when I reviewed When the Smoke Clears, so it's a pretty good pitch. All of these 36 Mafia albums are just pretty damn near vintage classics as far as that pitching goes. I just feel like this one's just a little bit more realized with its more commercialized productions, a little bit more gas. So there's definitely some ones on here. The productions on this particular album are just outstanding. There's some songs on here like Bin Laden, Shake That Jelly, Woof Woof, Like a Pimp remix, Rainbow Colors, some of these type ones that just have some real haunting and just overall dredge type music that just really feels like you're just having one of the worst head trips ever when it comes to smoking as far as that pitching goes. There really should not be too many complaints about the productions on here. And I just would have to say this is like club type music. There's a lot of good vintage type stuff. Maybe there might be one or two type ones for like some relative work shift, just the end of work shift. I'd say it's not really as full blown embraced in like the work shift, but it does have some moments of just saying once class or work is basically taken care of, there are some moments just heading right to the club pitches like that, going to strip clubs, some of those type pitches as far as that particular kind of goes. Good stuff. But this is really like just a ghastly album. So I'm basically going to talk as if there were two singles off this particular project, because 36 did have like some mixtapes. There's some ones on here. There's a number of remixes and part twos to this particular project, like a Pimp remix, You Scared Part 2. There's like another one on here. Well, at least Like a Pimp remix and You Scared Part 2. I want to say that You Scared was released as a single and like somewhere in 2003, some pitches like that. I'd have to say it was just kind of a concept. I know 36 Mafia did put out like some underground mixtapes, like the DJ Paul had a number like 15, 20, some of those type mixtapes that came out in like the early 2000s, late 90s, and 2000s as far as that pitch kind of goes. I don't know as much about those. I might get to those at some point if they have some new stuff on there. But I want to say one particular single that just was never on an album was You Scared, the original type version. So I'm going to treat that as if it's a single, because that's definitely a defining 3-6 song, one of their better ones from the early 2000s. And then, of course, Riding Spinners. So Riding Spinners is the first single. No matter what, this is the only single off the project if we're just counting like the standard album fare. But like I said, I'm gonna count You Scared. So Riding Spinners is basically like a thumping and jolting kind of summer 3-6 buzz single. I would definitely feel like this is like a good buzz single smash. I would definitely have to say, and this is like some early commercial taste of like 3-6 that they would get to. And this is a pretty good stunt pop. So this definitely just has some frolicking kind of summer energy as far as that pitch happens. 3-6 could usually pump out some of these type ones. This is a real good Travers type one to kind of have for like some summer energy pitches like that. Just heat of summer. Real good buzz single, like I was saying, just a good concept of some turn up, just the pitch behind it, just stunting in your whips and pitches like that, just looking snazzy. Some of those type pitches, just kind of be able to have just easy kind of turn up for like some hangout, homie type music pitches like that. Good cameo with Lil Flip. I like some of these 3 6 Mafia and Lil Flip type songs. That's a nice one. And then You Scared Part 2 is like the pseudo second single. This was at least a single, like I was saying, that was released somewhere in 2003 or 2002. So I'm going to talk about this one. It's like a classic 3/6 single, like I was saying. It's like the original definitely should have been on this particular album. Probably would have helped it sell a lot better, I would have to say. And it's like a ringtone and radio. This song is definitely like a ringtone and radio ready hit, I would have to suppose. So it's a good concept, definitely good club bop on here. Good crunk type single pitches like that. Reminds me of something that Lil Jon would do, just more from the 3/6 side of like the crunk side of things as far as that pitch can have. It's just a good concept here. Has real definitive chorus pitches like that. Just real good turn up. Just really gets the ravenous energy kind of going. Basically like the 3/6 Mafia version of like Lil White's Oxycontin type song. That was a big song in 2003, Oxycontin, as far as that pitch goes. But this is like the 3/6 kind of turn up where it's like an aw shit kind of moment as far as that particular kind of happens. It's like, all right, the big dog is showing up. It's kind of like hearing Salt Shaker in the club back in 2003. It was just kind of an aw shit type moment. Just some good concepts kind of get that. So that's a nice one. Yeah, I mean, no matter what, I would just recommend knowing about like You Scared, the 3/6 Mafia song. Just obviously most folks probably at this stage are aware of that particular song, but it's just a concept. It's just a vintage type hit, easy kind of smoke ready type one to kind of get. So basically there's 20 songs in this particular album. Apparently in nowadays times that there's a Riding Spinners remix that has Lil White and La Chat on there as far as that pitch goes. I'm reviewing the Spotify edition where the last song is the 20th song, the outro, so I didn't get to that one, the Riding Spinners remix. But basically out of the 20 songs on here, there's 2 skits, which the outro is just a talking outro as far as that pitch goes. It's not really a song. And then the Chris D interlude is not really a song either. So there's 18 songs out of 20 on here. Out of those 20, I wound up recommending 15. Out of those 18, I wound up recommending 15 and a half. So the only 2 songs I don't recommend in any fashion on here would just be Dangerous Posse, the 19th song on here, and then basically Ghetto Chick. So talk about those real quick. Ghetto Chick was just kind of a poor type one, kind of a more homely type chick type fare, just a more rugged type variation of like a down chick as far as that particular kind of happens, but just didn't pull out the vibe. So very lambent type one, just kind of a more mellow, breezy type one, but just the appeal behind it didn't match as well. It was kind of a summery type one, but it just didn't really have the appeal. And then Dangerous Posse. Normally, I just don't prefer these type of posse type songs on here. The production on some of these just don't always fit, or there's too many rappers on there. But this is just a poor example, which is too bad because it had Lil White and Frazier Boy, which were some turn up cats that were pretty dope around that time. But yeah, this album's gonna get a 10 out of 10 definitely. So the almost song on here is Testing My Gangsta. This is a pretty nice one. I do appreciate this one. This reminds me of like a Don Cannon mixtape type fare in terms of the production fare on it. It's a very gothic but soulful type club hitter, I would have to say. But the beat is just kind of dicey. But it has like some of these ethereal type vocals on here that just kind of make it for like, I don't know, just the ambience behind that particular song is just not quite as catchy as like particularly what needs to be. I mean, it's kind of one that's similar to like Woof Woof and a little bit of like the club noise rowdiness, like Riding Spinners and some of those type ones, and Let's Start a Riot, but it just doesn't really have the same appeal as those particular type ones. I just feel like the background vocals on that particular song just kind of get grating after a good while as far as that pitch kind of happens. I just feel like the execution of how it was nailed. I mean, it's kind of a ghostly type one. Just kind of feels like some ghostly spirits in some cases, just like some ghosts, something like that. But this, I don't know, the appeal behind it just feels like the loop behind that particular vocals would just get more tiresome within that. But it's actually a pretty popular song on Spotify, so it seems like there's folks enough that kind of like that song. I've known about this album for a while. It's just kind of constant, just here and there with how often it's always been kind of an almost song for me, but I do like the song. I would smoke to it in pitches like that were it to come up, but it's just kind of more here and there. Yeah, there's some definite nice ones on here. There are a series of smoking songs. I would have to say Bin Laden is one of these. Some Bin Laden weed is definitely a good concept for that, especially back in 2003 when he was kind of a big deal and kind of a horrific terrorist, I'd have to say. But this is like a woozy and kind of freakish smoke crazed gem, I would have to say in particular. It's like an easy kind of get crunk, after hours hangout fun of a song, I'd have to say in particular. It's like some good night activity. Definitely a good one to kind of just traverse pitches like that, pick up some Taco Bell or some KFC, some of those type fares, get some swishers, some Crown Royal, some of those type pitches, just night traverse and just smoke a sweet just on the way home, pitches like that, I'd have to say. Good concept, definitely some good hangout type fare, a nice splitsy type one. I'd say another real great smoking tune on here would be Rainbow Colors. It's definitely one of the best songs on the album. This is one of the ghastly type ones where I talk about this is a horrific highlight. This is definitely an excellent 3/6 Mafia beat. Just the overall appeal of this particular song really knocks some of these out of the park. is like a horrific kind of highlight, I would have to say, is like a getting completely stuck kind of smoke damnation of a song. I had to say in particular, real good concept for that. And this is one of the album's most wicked songs. So it definitely has some great appeal. Love the fact that Lil Flip was on the song. It's like a chopped and screwed type song. I had to say, just the concept of sipping syrup, some of those type areas. It's real great head trip of a song. It's really had to say, this is some great ones. If you are going to smoke with your pals, this is a great album to pick up because a lot of this is just great homies music as far as that pitch kind of goes. It's some great PlayStation, put on like Pimp My Ride, or just put on like Pimp My Ride or Jackass, some of those type things, or just movies, like some of those type fares, like Pulp Fiction, some of that type of stuff that's going to be on, just pizzas, getting Pizza Hut, some of that type of stuff as far as that particular kind of happens. Max Payne, some of that type of stuff is some good concepts, but Shake That Jelly is a pretty nice one. This one's not as much of a smoke song, but this is a really haunting type one, just within a ladies type sense that I'd say it's like a dope kind of haunting ladies dance tune. I would definitely have to say good lap dance type song and slow dance type song to kind of get here. It's like some easy kind of strip club gem of a song, I'd have to say, and it's like some basic turn up, I would have to suppose, and this is like a nice casual hitter. So this one has some more casual appeal. I mean, this album is somewhat of a hardcore rap album, but it does have the appeal, just having some of that blitzy type appeal in this overall. There are some ones, like I feel like songs like Shake That Jelly, Riding Spinners, Bin Laden, a little bit of Rainbow Colors, Let's Start a Riot, some of those type ones, Testing My Gangsta in some senses, just have some of that commercial appeal. Like if you don't know every last thing about rap music or southern rap, crunk, some of that type fair Lil Jon type music, and just more pitches like that. If you don't know every last 3 6 Mafia song, there are some vanilla type ones on here that do have some relatively rowdy type stuff, but are just relatively mainstream within a relative sense, so you can at least pick up on it in a casual type appeal, despite the fact this album doesn't have multiple singles or radio songs, that I'd say. So it's just some good concept. Shake That Jelly is definitely a casual one. Another casual one like that would be Let's Start a Riot. This is a nice one. It's like a basic kind of vanilla 2000s crunk club buzz song, I had to say in particular. It's a good pairing with Riding Spinners, like I was saying, definitely for some casual time. So it's just a good concept, some basic type bops to kind of get here. Real vanilla type energy, just a good concept. I mean, it's a riot song, but just the club energy and just the craze behind it. There's definitely way more vicious songs on this particular project. There's definitely way more vicious songs on this particular project, I'd have to say. Woof Woof is a pretty nice one. This is like a creeping kind of vintage 3/6 hauntingness of a song, I'd have to say in particular. This one reminds me of When the Smoke Clears Days, I would definitely have to feel like. It's like a lush, dark night beat, I would have to suppose, and this is a pretty dope one. So definitely appreciate the appeal of this. This vintage kind of 3/6, vintage kind of Juicy J, Project Pat type tone, just with like some night fair, just picking up snacks, pitches like that, going to the gas station, getting like some pizza or things like that, just getting turned up and swishers as far as that particular kind of happens. This real nightlife activity, especially for 2003, this is some blitzing type appeal. Just really like the appeal of some of these type ones in particular. Real good glitziness. Put Your D in Her Mouth is a pretty nice one. This is like a woozy kind of headshot vibe of a song, I'd have to say in particular. It's like a hoochie type gem to really get. It's more freakish type women, I'd have to say in particular. It's like a day after hours kind of smoke trip, I would have to say, with ladies in mind. Definitely a good ladies smoking song, and this is like some good noise kind of have for that. So it's just a good concept, some of this. Vintage type one, like kind of similar to like Slob on My Knob, some of those type pitches, just those particular type tones kind of get with that. It's real nice, woozy type one, just really high as hell, just good concepts for that. Beat 'em to the Floor is a pretty nice one. This is like a more get revved up, kind of switch to flip mode from work shift type excitement, I'd have to say in particular. This is one of those ones where I feel like Riding Spinners is kind of like that. This kind of the late work shift, probably like 3:30, 4:30 p.m. as work shift starting to close down type pitch of just being excited, being your whip, some of those type fares for summer energy and end of work shift. And Beat 'em to the Floor is definitely like that. Just real get revved up type one. This is like some evening commerce, I would definitely say, and it's a pretty good evening commerce buzz, I would have to suppose. So 36 at least did have some renditions of that. I mean, I feel like this is just one, this is kind of the rendition of this being such a classic album. It's just the concept of just having some of that. It's kind of the pitch behind having like relative work shift, just for like the concept of if you do have more responsibilities to get done, but just the concept of staying, just going completely 0 to 60, just heading right to the club, getting turned up, some pitches like that, buying like a box of beers, some pitches like that. So good concepts. Try Something is a pretty nice one. That says Project Pat. I'm guessing that he did this before he went to prison in 2002, which is a pretty good pitch that he's even on this particular album, because I want to say he was in prison by this point in 2003. But this is like a great ghastly kind of classic 3/6 fare, I would have to say in particular. This is one of the album's more brooding and sheer type beats, I would definitely have to suppose, and it's definitely a great one to smoke with you too. It's a good hangout type one. Let's get some smoke sessions, pitches like that. Smoke more than 4 or 5 or 6 swishers as far as that particular kind of goes. It's real ghastly and just head trip at one. Fuck That Shit's a pretty nice one. It's like a get rowdy kind of crunk tune, I would have to say in particular. It's like some definite club craze and hype noise I would have to feel about this one. This is like a typical kind of early 2000s stunt night, I would definitely feel like, and this is just some good jive. This is kind of one that's like a more turned up vibe of like, let's start a riot. I definitely feel like Fuck That Shit just has a little bit more edgy type turn up. I still feel like some of this is relatively, probably like 7.5, 8.5 out of 10 in terms of relative craziness just because of the concept. I feel like there are more vicious songs on here like You Scared Part 2, Woof Woof, some of those type ones, and like a Pimp remix, some of those type ones. A little bit of Mosh Pit, I would have to say, just a good concept in particular. Even Beat 'em to the Floor has a little bit more edginess towards it, but it is a relatively nice one, just within the concept of just getting within some relative rowdiness. Just good stock album cut, good song that's on here. More glad that it's on here more so than it's not. Not like it's a bad song, but just is kind of the concept that yeah, it's just about like I said, 7.5, 8 out of 7.5, 8 out of 10 in terms of sheer ravenous energy. But it is a good song to kind of get for some of that noise. Just kind of have good moments. Like a Pimp remix is definitely a very vicious song on here. Pimp C is on here after teaming up with 3 6 Mafia way back in the year 2000 with like the Sippin' on Some Syrup song, and then Project Pat's on here. Don't know where the original came from. Don't know if that was on like a mixtape. I've always wondered about where the original. Just never looked it up on YouTube pitches like that. Like a Pimp, I think for the most part it just leads you to like the Lil Flip and David Banner song. But I would just have to say Like a Pimp remix is definitely pretty vicious type one. Glad it's on here. It's like a vicious kind of head trip, smokage, torment of a song. I'd have to say in particular. This like a shrill kind of doomed beat. I would have to say this is definitely like an album standout, and this is like a good hangout hit. So it's definitely some nice ones to pair up with like Woof Woof, Bin Laden, and Rainbow Colors. I'd have to say just for like some good smokage type fare as far as that pitch goes. Like this is like I said, this is some great homies type music just to get some real menacing type smoke sessions on as far as that pitch goes. You could probably eat like 2 pizzas at a time, some pitches like that. It's really gobble up with like some snackage pitches like that and just forget what's going on. Real demonic type one, Like a Pimp remix. Mosh Pit's a pretty nice one. It's like a haunting kind of outdoor crunk rowdiness of a song, I'd have to say. Definitely some good. The turn up is about a 7 compared to others on here. Like I said, kind of similar to Fuck That Shit. I would say this like a basic kind of rager. Definitely a good concept to get some of these. I feel like some of these songs, Fuck That Shit, Let's Start a Riot, Mosh Pit. Despite the fact that this is Mosh Pit, I feel like this is kind of like a gateway 3 6 Mafia album. This is kind of one of those ones that was kind of initial type one to kind of kick things off as far as that pitching goes. More so than like When the Smoke Clears. This is kind of the concept of possibly like a more MTV friendly and more commercialized type one. I don't feel like it's commercial. The viciousness is definitely on here, but this is kind of the concept. It just feels like a conduit of a project, kind of similar to Most Known Unknown as far as that pitch goes. I mean, the energy is not gummy or anything like that, but it just has the appeal of like something that if you haven't fucked with 3 6 Mafia, this is a good starting point to kind of do that. But it is a great conduit and it's very vicious. It's just not turned down, so I don't think it's watered down. They About to Find Your Body is a pretty nice one. It's like a vintage kind of gnarled 3 6 goth. There's like a vintage kind of gnarled 3 6 gothicness, I would have to say in particular. It's like a great night residential creeping of a song, I'd have to say, and this is a great song to get some snacks. So this is just kind of, whether you're with homies or pitches like that, just the concept of just picking up some snackage, pitches like that, getting some smokage, just smoking a few swishers on the walk home, just night residential type strolls, just evening activity, finishing up some errands, some pitches like that, just getting those last momentary bills paid as far as those pitches kind of happen. Just some good concepts. I also feel like in terms of the Travers songs on here, I do feel like some songs like Riding Spinners and Beat 'em to the Floor are some good examples of that. Both some kind of relative midday, late day kind of commerce as far as that pitching goes. It's the concept of just, like I said, some of that makeshift type fare. Although I feel like They About to Find Your Body is more recreational type fare, but it can be the concept of just the errand type run, just standard strolls of just getting some tasks done as far as that kind of goes. Good concept. And then a good paranoia type song on here is Money Didn't Change Me. This is kind of like a Tupac reminiscent type one in a more crunk, dark kind of 3 6 Mafia type sense, in a more haunting type appeal, horror type sense. It's like a good homies back and forth, I'd have to say, and it's like a rugged kind of quick living problems. I would have to feel like just paranoia within that sense of like homies problems, but it's like a good dark outing, ruminating of a song to kind of get here. It's just another good concept of realizing of some homies fallout pitches like that, just smoking a bit, just residential type strolls as far as that pitch kind of happens, just standard out and about it, just getting tasks done, but then also just kind of smoking and just wondering, ruminating pitches like that. Good concept for that. So like I was saying, saying this album gets a 10 out of 10 classic score. Definitely would have to say in particular. The social score is going to get like a 10 out of 10 also. I just feel like the blitzing type of appeal, despite the fact that it only had one or two singles for the most part, the pitch behind this is just very sheer as far as that pitching goes. Has some commercialized type songs in here, at least within a relative horrorcore type sense. This is commercial horrorcore as far as that pitching goes. Definitely has a good amount of vanilla radio singles and pitches like that, or at least attempted ones, some good buzz songs, pitches like that, some good club life, some nightclub type tunes, a little bit of end of work shift type fare to kind of turn up a bit and get ready to just get to flip mode and get to getting crunk as far as that pitching goes. Some good lady songs on here, some strip club and just overall hood chick, juggalette type songs as far as those pitches kind of having some good concepts there. It's real good appeal. The ghastliness, some great smoking tunes, plenty of great smoking songs on here. Just the rowdy type turn up and just overall craziness just really gets edgy. They still are tearing up the club like they did on When the Smoke Clears. Some of those type pitches, just a good concept. Some of this is a very demonic album, so it's a good concept. So 10 out of 10 social. In terms of the future, like 36 Mafia has not been around since like late 2009, early 2010. They almost dropped their 2009, 2010 album Laws of Power. It's floating around on YouTube and places like that. I am eventually going to review that relative to the would-be album of that at some stage, but there are some more 36 Mafia albums to get to, like Last to Walk and some of those type ones. Choices the album, Choices 2, some of those type ones. There are some more 2036 albums, but this is definitely, like I said, a gateway kind of classic horrorcore, commercial horrorcore type project with some good buzz singles and good social type fare, just end of worship and pitches like that. Some good haunting type energy that this is really worth the investment.